talking about another team with a bright future coming up. We were just talking about
The
them.
Chicago
The
Bears.
Chicago Bears go and visit Detroit. They have 2 top 5 draft picks coming up from the looks of things. They're currently 3-8. Justin Fields, 16, 23,
Baller of a trade.
169 yards. Yeah, honestly. 1 TD, no picks. You know, at this juncture, do you think Justin Fields is the issue?
No.
No.
No. I don't.
He also had 104
The
yards on
Bear
the ground. I forgot to mention.
the Bears have a pretty good defense.
Mhm.
They have a what's the making of a good offense, right? And what that mean by that is they have a good quarterback. I think they have a good running back in Khalil Herbert. I think he's a pretty solid running back, and I'd be happy to have him on my team.
Mhm.
And then they got one good receiver, DJ Moore, and then
Cole
their
Kmet's
tight end and Cole
solid.
Kmet.
Yep.
Yeah, yeah. I was going to mention him. Jeez, come on now. But where I think they're really lacking is other weapons. Right, is when they can't rely on DJ Moore and Cole Kmet. When he can't rely on those guys to get open and to throw to them, where's he going to go with the ball? Right, they don't really have any other solid wide receivers that you can rely on. They don't have a good number 2.
Yeah.
And I think that's their biggest weakness right now, because you don't want to rely on Darnell Mooney or someone like Tyler Scott or St. Brown
Not
to be
Amon
your
Ra.
number 2 guy.
Not Amon Ra, which we'll get
No,
to. Amon Ra St. Brown in just a moment.
yeah, his brother,
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, but in their offensive line, I would argue is pretty good. They've been playing better, seems like, as of late. I would say, but if the Bears want to actually seriously if they want to be taken serious, they need to go out and make some splash moves on the offensive side of the ball and get some better weapons for Justin Fields.
Yep. 100%.
I, I I don't get the argument that he's the problem, which is what some people want to make. Because when you watch his game film, he looks good.
Yep.
Right? He can throw, he can move, he can run. He's quick, he's agile, he makes pretty good reads most of the time. He gets the ball out quickly. He doesn't get sacked a ton.
Nope.
He can escape that pressure and roll out and still make the throws while on the run. He, dare I say, the answer for the Bears at quarterback. It's just the Bears were not ready for Justin Fields.
Yeah.
They were not ready to do what's needed to give him the tools to succeed, the players to succeed around him.
Correct.
So that's what I would like to see them do this coming draft, is with one of those top 5, assuming they have 2 top 5s, right? Because they still might fall out one of them. Their pick might fall out top 5.
They're definitely top 10. 2 top 10 picks.
Yeah. But I would like to see them go out and get someone like Marvin Harrison. I would love to see it.
It'd be insane if they got
Marvin Harrison. I'm gonna say it every week. I want them to get Marvin Harrison, because then that gives them 2 legit targets. Well, really 3, because then you'd have DJ Moore, Marvin Harrison, and Cole Kmet.
If the Bears have this first overall pick, do they take Marvin Harrison with the number 1 overall pick?
Maybe because it's possible the Giants try and snipe him at like 3 or 4.
Yeah. That's what I'm kind of thinking. And
so
the thing is, the Bears don't need offensive line. You see a quarterback that scrambles around a lot, and you see a running game that's not efficient. Usually you blame the offensive line, but when you're watching the tape, it's they have a good O-line. They finish off blocks. You got Tevin Jenkins, who is just a player I'm in love with. If Tevin Jenkins was on a team like the Chiefs or the Eagles, he'd be regarded as one of the best guards in the NFL, which in my opinion he is. You got Darnell Wright at right tackle. You got Braxton Jones at left tackle. You got Nate Davis, who is a known mauler from Tennessee, just really good offensive line. And Lucas Patrick, you got Cody Whitehair deep on that roster as well. I think they have the pieces on the offensive line to be a really elite offensive line. it just comes down to exactly what you said: is the wide receiver room's too thin. They don't have enough talent at wide receiver, and DJ Moore is a good wide receiver one, but like I think he's be a better wide receiver too. You don't want DJ Moore to be your wide receiver. You want like a guy like Marvin Harrison Jr. to be
Mm-hmm.
your wide receiver one. And the reason we're so high on Marvin Harrison is like he's a lock. You're talking about a great character guy, which I think the Bears need that. They need a guy who comes into that locker room and says, you know, like I don't know if you've seen him say this, but he said something along the lines of, by the end of my career, I don't care about all the accolades I get. It's almost like he's saying, yeah, I know I'm going to get accolades. Yeah, I know I'm going to be a Hall of Fame wide receiver. I already know that. I want to make as many
Yeah.
people happy as possible. And that's a big deal. Like you don't have to deal with your George Pickens issue that the Steelers are dealing with right now. You don't have to
Mhm.
deal with, you know, Elijah Moore going out and saying how bad the Jets offense is a couple seasons ago and ultimately going over to the Browns, or an Odell Beckham situation when he was on the Browns. You don't have to deal with that. You deal with a guy that has good character that wants to see your team win. And when you can get that type of character in your locker room, I think he's worth the first overall pick. That's why you take quarterbacks with the first overall pick, because they tend to be your leader. And if
Mhm.
Marvin Harrison can end up being the leader alongside Justin Fields, I think it's the perfect dynamic for this Bears team to turn around. You know,
Take him
um,
with the number one because that risk is high that he's not there at say 5,
mhm,
right? Because I wouldn't be surprised if the Giants try to take him because they also need to
wide
upgrade
receiver.
that wide receiver room heavy.
Hmm.
So if the Bears pass on him, Giants might swipe him at 4, and then
100%.
they might lose their chance to get one of the more generational talents in this coming draft.
Yeah,
You
and
know.
like something else I want to circle on the Bears still a little bit deeper. They got Yannick Ngakwe, uh, at
Hmm.
defensive end. Now they got Montez Sweat as defensive end. You got your edge rushers solved. You have your edge rush issue solved. You don't need to worry about getting an edge rusher in that top 5 pick. So, what does that leave open? Well, you got Tremaine Edmonds in the middle of the field, who's one of the best middle linebackers in the NFL. When he was with the Bills, he had that high regard because he was on a playoff team. Now that he's with the Bears,
Hmm.
like it seems like everybody forgot his name. Eddie Jackson, who I think is a top 5 safety in the NFL, doesn't get nearly the love he deserves because the Bears are a bad team. So now you're looking at the other positions. Like you got Jalen Johnson, who's a solid corner. Um, he's been making a name for himself. But you got Kyler Gordon at your other corner, who's like mediocre at best. You know,
Hmm.
your weak side linebacker and your strong side linebacker are definitely leaving questions. You got Noah Sewell at your strong side linebacker, but he's been coming off injury. Um, it's just like this defense, has been a strong point for the Bears these past few years. Just they have good pieces. Just they have those gaping holes in between, like we were talking about with the Texans this offseason. If they go
Yeah.
ahead and fill those gaping holes with, like the defensive tackle out of Illinois, I can't remember his name for the life of me right now. Um, that'd be a great pickup. And in the second round, they're picking early. They get the guy out of Penn State at corner. Then you have a very successful draft just right there. And I think those two pieces would literally turn around this Bears defense. And so their first 3 picks being Marvin Harrison, uh, interior defensive lineman from Illinois. I can't remember his name. I'll look it up. And the
Wait,
cornerback,
hold on, I got it. Who was it again? From what
Illinois
from what
defensive
college?
interior defensive tackle.
Okay. So wait, why can't I see it? So I'm looking at a mock draft right now, and they have the Bears taking Caleb Williams number 1 overall at the moment,
Yeah, but
and
do
then
we?
the Cardinals taking Marvin Harrison. That's crazy.
Yeah. Um.
And then this other one, they have the Bears taking Marvin Harrison number 1 overall, which I love.
Yeah,
I think that's the right pick for him.
I agree.
I don't think there's really any other pick for him to take because wide receiver is your biggest need, and you're getting one of the best receivers we've seen in a long time.
100%.
So I don't foresee them passing. I don't think it can, and they're definitely not going to take quarterback because like we've talked about, Justin Fields is not the reason. He's not the issue.
Exactly.
Did you find that player yet?
I'm getting it pulled up still.
Okay.
But while we go ahead and get that sorted, how about you go ahead and lead us into the Lions side of the ball? Jared Goff throwing 2 touchdowns, 3 interceptions.
Oh, are you talking about Keith Randolph Jr.?
No,
Or are you
I'm talking about Jerzon
Newton?
Newton. Jerzon Newton.
Okay. Yeah, I just saw that. Just saw him. Okay.
Yeah, Jerzon Newton is a stud, and he might be a little bit of a reach for the Bears, but like this
They're
is
calling a
assuming,
top 10 pick.
yeah, it's really realistic that they go and get both those guys, and that ends up being a big change for what the Bears are trying to do. And I'm talking about Kalen King out of Penn State. Um, when I'm talking about corner, and there's a chance that the Bears trade back to like where the Falcons are, maybe even the Packers or the Bucks, and they still get Newton, and they might be able to slide back into that first round and get Kalen King. And worst case scenario, they trade back and Kool-Aid McKinstry is still on the board, and that's definitely not a bad draft pick to get either. And there's also Cooper DeJean, who I think is going to be good, but I'm much more high on Kalen King and McKinstry personally. And of course Nate Wiggins is in that discussion as well.
And you think they'd be good fits for the Bears?
Yeah, I think specifically Kalen King is the best pick for the Bears. Kool-Aid McKinstry, like McKinstry is like just like he's the standard cornerback. Like I don't think that I think he's plug and play in any defense, which is one of the highest regards you can give to a cornerback going into the NFL. He could just go in any defense, just like Christian Gonzalez could. And the Patriots got a steal with him. Kool-Aid McKinstry is just a similar type player, just very talented, very physical, very lengthy, very just he has all the assets there. But then you look at a guy like Kalen King, and he's that physical type. He's that Joey Porter Jr. type, that tough, nasty, gritty type, and he plays over in Penn State just like JPJ did. And when JPJ was there, that's why no one was passing on them. And this season we're seeing a similar result with Penn State. Kalen King's leading that secondary to be a no-fly zone. I think with the addition of Kalen King, because check it, with these 3 draft picks, this is the difference. Justin Fields at quarterback, Khalil Herbert at running back, DJ Moore at wide receiver 1 to start the season, Marvin Harrison at wide receiver 2, and Darnell Mooney at wide receiver 3, Cole Kmet. And then we talked about their offensive line pretty in depth already, and you have a really good offensive line. You switch to the defensive side of the ball, you got Ngakoue, and you have Newton at your defensive tackle, and then you have Justin Jones or Andrew Billings, whoever you're feeling more comfortable with, and you can rotate them, honestly, because they're both serviceable players, and you got Montez Sweat on the other side. Your linebacker core doesn't really change, but you can always pick that up at free agency for pretty cheap, and you should be able to have enough spending money this offseason to go ahead and improve that linebacking core. Then you go ahead and have Jalen Johnson, who's been playing really well this season at your left side corner. You got Jaquan Brisker, who's a mediocre at best safety, but you can probably replace safety pretty cheap and get an upgrade this offseason as well. Eddie Jackson, who I still love at free safety. I think that he's still a really good safety that doesn't get his roses. And then you replace Kyler Gordon with a guy like King. Well, now where's the hole on that Bears roster?
They're looking a lot better. Plus, that's not counting any free agents moves that they also make.
Yeah.
Two on top of that.
Yeah.
So it's like, I would love to see them make that moves, but that ownership group and GM just leave a lot to be desired to not make moves that are smart or make sense.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't be surprised if they just go in the complete opposite direction. If I'm being honest.
Yeah.
Being real.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised either, but I can hope otherwise. The Bears are almost there. And I think when you draft Justin Fields, Justin Fields wants to win games for an organization that isn't winning games. And I think that speaks more to how much of a leader he is than people want to give him credit. If Justin Fields was just a mediocre quarterback, then the Bears wouldn't have stayed in this game 26-31 and almost fucking win it. Justin Fields wasn't the
Yeah.
reason that they lost this game. He had a fumble, but he didn't lose it. He didn't have a pick.
He's always been a high character type of guy.
Exactly. And, like,
You know.
he's able to get the ball down the field. We've seen that. He's able to run the ball in sketchy situations. We've seen that. It's just one of those things where the Bears are right there. I thought that they'd be there this season, but they proved me otherwise because of those gaping abysses at several positions, wide receiver being one of them, and specifically defensive line, linebacker, and cornerback. Like, you got 4 positions that you need to address badly because those are where you're getting hurt the worst. That's why, Amon-Ra came out and had himself a fucking field day. Was because,
Yep.
you know, the Bears run a base 4-3 defense on a lot of snaps. You're not switching over, Jalen Johnson over to that side of the field. That's why he only has 2 tackles. He did have a pass breakup, but you're leaving.
They did have 3 interceptions as well.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, and like Kyler Gordon, like you can't leave him on an island with Amon-Ra, and that's what happened. Was he was just getting burnt up by Amon-Ra, and just can't let that happen. I think Amon-Ra had 5 receptions or 6 receptions on him. Not acceptable. You can't be letting wide receivers get out of hand like that, and if if they had that other cornerback, check it. Like, they would have won this game. If they would have had a solid second corner, they would have won this game. They would have shut down Amon-Ra, and then their top receiver would have been Jahmyr Gibbs at 6 receptions, 59 yards. And let's assume that Amon-Ra had half his production, 4 receptions for about 40 yards. That's a completely different story. And Jared Goff was already having a tough time. As you mentioned, he had 3 interceptions, but he did have 2 touchdowns. Montgomery went out and had himself a field day, 76 yards, 6.3 yards per carry, and a touchdown. Jahmyr Gibbs, 8 carries, 36 yards, and a touchdown. Both showing fantasy relevance. Jahmyr Gibbs, as I said, had 6 receptions, 59 yards as well. So most of his fantasy relevance coming through the air. That TD definitely did help him and help his case to pursue like relevance. And I think I'd be comfortable starting either of these running backs at running back 2 at least.
yeah, me too. I would also agree with that. How would you rank the Lions as a whole against the rest of the NFC?
I think they are the best team.
Best team, even against compared to the Bulldogs.
Even against the Georgia Eagles.
Yeah. The Philadelphia Georgia Bulldogs.
Yep. No, like, the thing is with the Lions is we've seen more grit from the Lions. And it's just like, what's the argument against the Lions? Like, they have one more loss, sure, but the Eagles, I think the Eagles and the Lions are right on the same tier. And if I had to pick a team, I'd rather, like, if they go against each other in the NFC Championship, I'm taking the Lions. Like, I think that they're the better team, like, it just boils down to one of those situations where, like, I just like how their team's built a little bit more. I like how the Eagles are built, but like with the Lions, you have Jared Goff at quarterback, who's been proving that he is good enough to be in that high caliber quarterback. He is proven that he can be statistically a top 5 quarterback throughout the season, and if he's not top 5, he's top 10. And
yeah,
you got a great 1-2 punch at running back, which the Eagles don't have that great 1-2 punch. They have Swift, who had a 2 or 3 game stretch where he was just elite, and then he's been good since. You got 3 really good wide receivers with Amon-Ra, Josh Reynolds, Jameson Williams, and you got Khalif Raymond and Donovan People-Jones on the bench. Like, really solid. You got Sam Laporta, who's a fucking stud. You got a really good offensive line, which, like, I think that their offensive line at this juncture is better than the Eagles. You got a really great defensive line, which I give that edge to the Eagles. The Eagles do have a better defensive line, but the Lions aren't far behind. I would say that the Eagles have the best defensive line in the NFL, and the Lions have probably the 3rd or 4th best defensive line in the NFL. But then, you go into their secondary, and you got Cameron Sutton, you got Brian Branch at safety, You got Kirby Joseph, you got Jerry Jacobs, who have all proven to be very serviceable. You got Derek Browns, Alex Anzalone, and Jack Campbell at linebacker. You have like, where's the hole on this team? With the Eagles, like it feels like, their cornerback too leaves a little bit to be desired. With their offensive line, it leaves a bit to be desired, especially with the departure of Isaac Samalu. You know, that's the reason I'm comfortable with saying, you know, I take the Lions.
I get it. I'm just used to hating the Lions,
Me too.
and it's fun for me to hate the Lions at this point. It's kind of like my bit,
Yeah.
if you will.
Mm-hmm.
And so I continue to hope for their downfall, which is why it pains me to say that they're actually a good team, and I don't think they're quite on the level of the Eagles, because personally I would still pick the Eagles and the 49ers to win that game.
Yeah.
But they have made a drastic improvement, and I think they're a force to be reckoned with for at least the next 5 years.
So like, here's my thing with the Lions too. Like you got to keep in mind they have two losses this season. Well, let's look at those losses. They lost to a good Seattle team in overtime. They got smacked around by the Ravens, sure, but they had a bad game this season, and they lost to the Seahawks and a nail biter. But then look at their wins. It goes back to what we were talking about with Michigan. Funny enough, about a week or two ago, um, when we were talking, do they deserve to be in the college playoffs? Which after their win this past week, they definitely do.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Yeah,
against Penn State, not against Maryland. The Maryland game made us raise some eyebrows, but they can get things back under
topic
control
for
with Idaho State.
topic for another time.
Yeah, true. Sorry. um, but like with the Lions, they beat the Chiefs in a nail biter, but then they go smack the Falcons, they go and smack the Packers, they go and smack the Packers, Panthers, then they go and smack the Buccaneers. They get smacked by the Ravens, but then they go and beat the Raiders by 2 scores. They go and get a nail biter against the Chargers, and then they have a pretty close game against the Bears. Now they go to Green Bay. They have Green Bay come visit them. Then they go to Big Easy. Then they go to Chicago. Then they host Denver, go to Minnesota, go to Dallas, and then they host Minnesota.
Mm-hmm.
So that's how like it's looking right now. Like, honestly, I think their only hard competition is going to be the Cowboys through the rest of the stretch. And I think they beat the Cowboys. Like, what can you, like, the thing is, they're dominant in their wins, usually. Like, several of their games, they've blown out teams.
Mm-hmm.
They've only gotten blown out once, and their other loss is a close game, and they beat the Chiefs. They beat the Chiefs set. They went past the Chiefs test, so now, like, it's just, the reason I say that they're the best team is just they're young and they're growing throughout the season, and they're not feeling the growing pains because they have a veteran mindset. Offensively, they're very veteran oriented at this juncture, other than wide receiver. But that's kind of how you want it to be too. You want your wide receivers to be young, and you want to have good young guys. That's exactly how I want it to be. I give the edge to the Lions with wide receivers. I give the edge to the Lions with offensive line. I give the edge to the Eagles and the 49ers on defensive line, but I don't think the Lions are super far behind. Like, defensively,
No,
like, I could agree that the Eagles and the 49ers are the better teams, but offensively, I think the Lions are the much better team. And I think, like, it goes Eagles at number 1, 49ers at 2, and then Lions are number 3 in the NFC. But then offensively, I think that the Lions are the best team, like, just fundamentally. And then it goes, like, I don't know, like, after that, it's like, then you can put the Eagles, and I'm not comfortable with putting the 49ers third there. So, like, I don't think the 49ers stay in that discussion because they haven't proven to me that they are that team yet, and I need to see it.
Yeah, no, I don't think they've done enough maybe this year yet. But I think they definitely have the ability to be that team.
110%.
And